when I was like a teenager and walked me through the steps of what it takes to fix problems while not knowing the answers. And thinking about the indoctrination of the feminist movement onto the psyche of young boys, the agenda has been pushed that what a woman really wants is a man that is emotionally vulnerable and emotionally willing to open himself up to her. Hello, welcome back. I am Jared, and in this video, I'm going to be going over the Order of Man podcast, how a man communicates with his wife.
All right, guys, let's get into this conversation. I was reminded that I needed to have this conversation based on a discussion that I had seen in our Facebook group the other day, and somebody had made, I'm paraphrasing here, the post where they talked about how to communicate problems with their wife, and I said something to the effect of, I couldn't agree more that as you communicate with what you are personally dealing with in your own life, and there's challenges as men, right? We deal with stuff. We deal with baggage and backgrounds and problems and challenges and struggles and stress and everything else. But the way that you communicate this to your wife is really going to help you be more effective as the leader, the patriarch of your home, or it's actually going to undermine your credibility within the home.
So I'm immediately reminded of all of the chick flicks that I've seen over the last 30 plus years. And thinking about the indoctrination of the feminist movement onto the psyche of young boys, the agenda has been pushed that what a woman really wants is a man that is emotionally vulnerable and emotionally willing to open himself up to her. So going into this, we are already operating at a handicap.
And I had made the comment that if a man simply complains incessantly to his wife about his issues and the things that he's dealing with and his problems and his challenges, and he never addresses it from the perspective of, here's what I'm dealing with, and also, this is the most important thing, here's what I'm going to do to overcome this, then it's likely that you're acting more like your wife's girlfriend than you are her husband or significant other. And that's a problem.
As I'm listening to him talking about men complaining to their wives, I'm reminded of all of the different avenues in which our society allows and promotes complaining and giving your opinion and your stars and your rating and your comments and what it's doing to our society. All the way down to video games and where you can report every player for every little reason and you get actually banned from online play for the littlest things if you don't follow their perfect little agenda. So what do we think this is doing to young men's minds? It's allowing them to think that this world operates off of complaining and getting what you want from that complaining. The world was a lot tougher back when you weren't able to complain and make a comment on every little video and every little thing that you do. Every product that you purchase, you can leave a review and a scathing comment on every little thing that you do. Every restaurant, I'm noticing when I'm searching for a restaurant, I'm seeing all of the stars are reducing over the last 5 years.
Inevitably, when I bring this up and I have these conversations with people, they like to say, well, if you can't talk with your wife and you can't be vulnerable with her, like who can you be? And you should be able to communicate it. Guys, don't misunderstand me. All right, that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be able to communicate about the problems or the struggles or the challenges that you're having. Now, the vulnerability issue, I don't like that word. And I don't like that word because nobody knows what the hell you're talking about when you say it. And so I avoid having conversations around phrases and words and catchphrases that have all of these different meanings and different angles based on who you're talking with and based on what they're trying to say and what their agenda is, because it's not helpful to be able to have those powerful conversations. So when you say vulnerability, I'm not a fan of that. Now, does that mean that you can't talk about the issues you're dealing with? Of course. And if you think that's what vulnerability means, then I guess, yeah, that's okay. But I'm not a fan of just being vulnerable for the sake of being vulnerable, just to expose yourself to some potential threat. That's not helpful. And it isn't helpful to be vulnerable for the sake of vulnerability. I know that's the buzzword and that's the keyword and that's what everybody thinks you should do and that's what all the therapists will tell you to do and that's what the Instagram gurus will. Just be vulnerable. Why? Why? If you can give me a reason for being vulnerable. Now look,
Right, because vulnerable to what end? Vulnerability it means weakness. And when we expose a vulnerability, we're not exposing it in order for it to stay there. We are exposing it to show that we need to fix it. If we're in battle and we have an area that is vulnerable, we fortify it. We don't further demonstrate that it's vulnerable. We do what is necessary to fortify it, to make it stronger. And that's what we're supposed to do as men. Yeah, we may be able to express ourselves in a vulnerable way, but we need to be fixing those vulnerabilities. We need to be fortifying those vulnerabilities. And this goes back into what he was talking about earlier, to have a plan of fixing your issues. Your wife is looking for you to have a plan forward. And I'm going to tell you, that is a tough life. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. As a man, our lives are tough. But that's the thing, is that God made us strong. He is calling us to be tough. And, I'm really preaching to myself here because I grew up very weak. It took me until my 30s and hearing guys like this to tell me, hey, snap out of it. Get stronger. Your problems aren't going to go away the more that you talk about your problems. It's tough because I always would get really scared and I would think, well, I'm supposed to just know all the answers to life. No, that's not the case. And, I really wish that somebody would have stepped into my life when I was like a teenager and walked me through the steps of what it takes to fix problems while not knowing the answers. And the trick is that God put inside of you as a man a beautiful thing. He put inside of you a little voice that tells you, hey, I think that this plan might work. I see all of these issues, all of these traps and pitfalls and stuff like that. And I feel like that's how I fix it. That plan right there, that seems like a good idea. Right there, that's what God gave you. God didn't give women that. When women are in a very stressful situation or they have these real problems that they have to fix, they freeze. And that is a feature, it's not a bug about women. I'm not talking about women here. I'm saying that's what God put inside of them. What did God put inside of you as a man? There's an issue going on and you're able to focus. There's something about us as men where we can just focus. And that's why we're so good at video games, right? There's all of these, say we're in a war game and all of these people are firing at us and we got to get to this particular ridge and fight people over there or whatever. We just go. For some reason, our brain can just focus on that. We just go. The thing is you don't have to have all the answers. You just go. You just run. If you are, say, struggling with finding a job, how many resumes have you submitted? How many Indeeds have you gone on? Have you submitted 100? Are you grinding out on that? Are you focusing on that ridge and are you pushing forward to that? You're like, I need money. Well, that's how you get money, is you get a job. So you just go. That is the right answer. Stop having all of these feminine voices inside your head and just push them out of your head. You know the right answers. God is giving you the right answer. Ask God what he thinks you should do, and you'll know. Trust that voice inside your head. Feminist women are trying to suppress that little voice in you. And I know because that's what I grew up in. That's what I struggled with. I had this little voice in my head, and I thought that it was good, but the world around me was saying that it's bad and that it's toxic, but it's not. And women want to follow that. Your wife wants to follow that. Your girlfriend wants to follow you, even though she thinks that she has a better plan. The reality is that God gave you the gift of leadership. Leadership means, and that's the thing, right? What's more powerful? A man that doesn't know where he should go, but he steps into danger and he steps into it anyway? Or a man that calculates every little thing? The calculation is a representation that he's afraid, right? He's too afraid to act. When in reality, the best thing you could do is act. That's the fearless part. That's coming out of you. You can be scared, but at the same time, you're pushing through it anyway. Paralysis by analysis is a real thing. But men, you need to just go.
You guys will say, hey, thanks for being vulnerable on this podcast, or thanks for being vulnerable on your Instagram post the other day. Okay, the reason I'm sharing some of that is for a reason. It's to empower you. It's to help you. It's to help me work through some issues. It's to help me come up with some solutions to my problems. It's to give you a perspective that you haven't considered before. I'm not doing it for the sake of vulnerability. I'm doing it because I want to serve. And so it's serving as means to an end, which is emotional strength and fortitude and resilience and well-being. And to that, I say, absolutely, you should do that. But here's the deal, guys, and this is what I had said to this gentleman in this Facebook post. I said, if you continually communicate with your wife and you bitch and you moan and you cry and you complain about all your problems and you never pose any solutions and you never talk about how you're going to improve yourself and you're never going to talk about how to get better and be a better husband, be a more assertive man, become more capable, become more proficient, then you might as well just be your girlfriend. And if that's actually what your wife wanted, she would have friend-zoned you a long time ago. But she didn't. She married you. She committed to you. And why would she do that? Why would she marry you? Why would she commit to you? Because she believes that you have something to offer. She believes that you help her get to a place that she could not have imagined going on her own. She wanted to band with you, and she found that there was some sort of either potential or something in you that was.
And see, I truly believe that thing that he's talking about, that thing inside of you that she sees, that your wife or girlfriend sees, is what is inside every man because God put it in you. Women are geared to follow you. And so you really just have to own that. You have to own that you are the leader. It was such a mind-blowing thing when I discovered this in my life. If people are constantly telling you that your ideas are bad, then yes, that makes you feel like you're not supposed to be a leader. But by the very definition of man, you are the leader. You are. And so all you have to do is just flip that switch in your head and say, no, I'm the leader in a loving way, not to your wife, but in your head. You say, I'm the leader, respectfully and lovingly guide her along toward a better life. That's the thing. You know the answers. You really do. I really want to, if anything you get out of this, I want you to know that you do have the correct answers. If you are following God. If God is your compass, you can't go wrong. If you're leading her towards sin, yeah, would God tell you to do that? No. No, he wouldn't. Would God tell you to be a better husband? Yes. Would he tell you to be a better father? Yes. Would he tell you to be a better employee or a better boss or anything like that? Yes. Work towards those things. Do you think that he wants you to go to the gym? Yeah, probably. Even though the Bible does talk about that physical activity profits a little, but spiritual strength is the ultimate goal. Yeah, of course. However, going to the gym and getting stronger is part of your mission. You are there to protect your family, and you need to do those things. Is watching porn what God wants you to do? No. No, that's not a good leader. You need to stop that immediately and go towards something that is healthy. Put your mind on things that are healthy. That is what God wants you to do. Let that be a voice to you to finally step into that leadership role.
That was beneficial, and she felt like it would make sense to partner with you. And if all you're ever doing is complaining and nagging and griping about what's going on in your life and how bad it is, can you see how that would undermine your leadership within the walls of your home? Of course it would. Now again, I don't want you to misunderstand me, because a lot of you guys are going to take this out of context, because you do every time I have these conversations. You're going to take one sentence that I say, and you're going to say, well, Ryan, that's not a good way to behave. I want you to listen to this podcast in its entirety. And I want you to understand what I'm actually talking about here. I'm not saying that you have to be guarded, that you have to be closed, that you can't share this stuff with your significant other. Of course, you should be able to. But saying that you feel like shit, or saying that you're dealing with a problem, or saying you're dealing with an issue, or you're dealing with people, or you're dealing with a certain feeling, whatever it is that you might be going through right now, simply expressing that is an incomplete thought. It's an incomplete thought. The complete thought is, I'm dealing with this, so I am going to do X moving forward. Now, that being said, I also believe that there is a time and a place where we should be able to have these conversations.
I want to go back to that point real fast. I 100% agree that you can share your emotions with your wife and be, quote unquote, vulnerable. Express everything that you're thinking about. And it's not like you have to have a perfect roadmap like we talked about earlier. So I think he's missing a part here. However, there are many cases where I brought a problem to my wife, a direction I thought that we might want to go, or that there was some problem at work that I just struggled to figure out the answer to, and say, I have this problem. I've thought of these solutions. but I was wondering if you have any other possible solutions. And she's come up with some great ideas. I've incorporated those things, and I've been very grateful to her for that. I've come to her and said, wow, that really did work. Thank you for that. But do you see the shift there? That's a very important shift. It's such a beautiful thing to be able to just kind of lay yourself down and say, babe, I'd like to talk to you about an issue. And I've tried all these different things. Is there any way that you can kind of think about this and kind of help me and like walk with me along this path of figuring out this problem? And she loves that. So there's a really fine balance here.
Maybe there are some things that you just need to get off your chest. Maybe you are dealing with something and you don't quite know how to work through it, so you need to talk with somebody to bounce these ideas off of so you can begin to work through these things. But I would argue that is not the role of your spouse. That's the role of a battle brother. That's the role of a friend in your community or your neighborhood. Or, it could even be the role of your spouse if you're doing it from the perspective of how do we begin to solve this? How do we create solutions to the problem? I hear a lot of guys will say, well, I just need to vent. I just need to get things off my chest. Don't do that to your wife.
So he's kind of bringing up the point that I just brought up. There's a very subtle shift that you need to make with your wife, that she particularly isn't the one that you just vent to. Okay, you need to just accept that. If you need to just vent, get out the emotions then you would do that with your friend, and then come back to her and address your issues. But it's not hiding from her. You can tell her, I was struggling with this. I went to my friend. We kind of talked about it. And this is what we kind of came to the conclusion of. What do you think about that? It's subtle, right? It's not the complaint. I can't do it. That is not what your wife needs from you. There are times where you can't do it. There are times where you're going to feel you just can't do it. So you need to find a path. And that's one of the reasons why I'm making these videos, is because I'm trying to find like-minded men that I can share these things with. And we can have discussions in the comment section, and we can come to conclusions together. We can learn from each other, and then direct the energy toward our wife that is a leadership energy, where we are leading the family, where we return back to that.
Because it alienates her. It doesn't paint you in a positive light, and it isn't conducive to results and success moving forward. Now, if I was dealing with an issue and I said, hey, hon, I really need to talk with you about something. I've got a couple of ideas of my own, and I would like to hear what you have to say. Because believe it or not, and contrary to what some of you might believe after hearing this podcast, I actually value my wife's opinion. I believe she brings something to the table that I don't bring myself. If I didn't believe that that was the case, I wouldn't have been married to her for almost 17 years now. She enhances my life. She adds something to my life. And so her opinion matters. Her perspective is relevant and important to me. So there might be times in my life where I'm dealing with a particular issue, and I will go to her and tell her what I'm dealing with, and I will tell her directly, I would really like your opinion. Here's what I think. Here's what I'm thinking about doing. Here's the solution I came up with. Here's the path I'm exploring and considering right now, but I would like to hear your perspective, because maybe you'll share something with me that either I'm not privy to or not aware of or not tuned in with. And so what perspective can you give to me so that I can round out my thought process and I can lead us forward into better results with our finances or the culture and dynamics of our family and how we raise our children, or any number of things that you could be dealing with regards to your wife.
And that's exactly what I said, right? I think this is great. I think we're on the right path related to this concept. Okay, so this is where I'm going to cut the video off. And what I hope you gained out of this video is understanding the subtle difference between just complaining to your wife and not being a leader, or discussing your issues with your wife in a way that you guys come to a combined solution so you can move your family forward and lead in the proper way.